So we're down to the questions that we should ask ourselves in building a plan for stage 100 is again our focus for today. But I think the plan, goes beyond stage 100 and really talks about where you're heading from a business disaster recovery plan, continuity plan, whatever you want to call it, to make sure that you're ready for something negative to happen if it ever does, and hopefully it doesn't. But the first question is, what version of stage 100 are you on? That's we've had some scenarios where we have a great backup of the data, but the backup is in a version that is prior to the newest version. And so by not having a copy of the install files for the version you're on causes an upgrade, and that just causes a delay in getting that system back up and running as fast as possible. So, what version are you on, and what is the accessibility to that version to be reinstalled is really the key question here. So you want to make sure that you both have a copy of the application, whether that's from the server or the install files, or something that would make sure you're on par there. What other solutions are business critical and do they need to be backed up? So, simple things like email, if you're using Exchange on premise still, or is it cloud? That'd be a question that you ask yourself. But, what are those other mission critical business applications that you utilize? And again, are you both are you backing up or capturing the version and the data, and making sure that they're backed up, so again you can get up as quickly as possible for that disaster or problem to happen. How frequently are the backups for stage 100? Again, I think this really comes down to how fast do you need to be back up and running. If a weekly backup is good enough and you can rebuild your week from that backup pretty easily or quickly, weeklies may be fine. Maybe it's weekly with incremental database backups that you can reinstall and restore daily for those incremental snapshots. But the question really is, how quickly do you need to be back up, and how hard is it to rebuild from that demarc point if you needed to rebuild? So many people are doing in our group are doing weekly backups with incrementals so that they can rebuild over a week's span of time, and that seems to be fairly reasonable, but depends on the size and complexity of your business is definitely a key portion of that question. Is your Sage ERP hosted in the cloud, on-premise, or hybrid environment? And let's define those. One is are you running Sage in a hosted cloud? Whether that be Summit or go to my ERP, on a server in Amazon Web Services. Is it on a Google server in the Google Cloud or Microsoft Azure? So those are all viable sources for you to utilize. Whether they be packaged by a provider or you're doing it just on your own on those services. But if you have it in the cloud and you're hosted, that doesn't guarantee that there's a really strong redundancy and continuity plan. So you want to make sure the service provider is showing you their SLA and what they have to offer for redundancy and backups and things of that nature. So you want to be that definitely adds an assurance, but you don't want to believe that just because you're in the cloud you have that continuity plan in place. You want to definitely check into what they offer. Is it on premise, meaning you have a server in-house, it's in your four walls and you are maintaining that server on your own? If that's the case, you definitely have to look at that plan. What happens if that server goes down? Again, it could be something as simple as the battery going dead and the hard drive failing, or do you have multiple hot swap hard drives? Do you have the backups? Do you have the solutions that would run those backups? So how are you running things, and the mission critical solutions, where are they? Are they the cloud or on premise, because you might be in a hybrid mode where some things are cloud-based. If you're running things like Sage Inventory Advisor, that's a solution that comes in and grabs data from Sage and brings it to the cloud, and it's really a cloud-based solution. So, you're not as mission critical as it might be to the business. You're not overly concerned about that piece because it is cloud-based and hybrid. Avalara Avatax would be another one that's a hybrid model cloud solution that you wouldn't need to overly worry about. But if Sage 100 is on premise on your server and connecting to those solutions, going up to the cloud, you definitely need to worry about your portion, which is the Sage 100 side of things on your server. So you might be in those three different environments, and you could, in a sense, be in a hosted environment with a hybrid solution to pure cloud solutions like Avatax and Sage Inventory Advisor, and that would maybe cover you depending on the solution provider that you have for your cloud hosted platform. In how many places do you have a Sage backup? That was like the question that really comes to hardware. Are you keeping one offsite in the cloud? Are you keeping one offsite in a USB drive? Do you have, offsite storage happening in more than one place? If you're in a building and the building collapses, God forbid, if it's just on the first floor versus the 7th floor may not help you. So you want to make sure that it's offsite and far away from the servers that it needs to be on, to make sure that it's not part of that natural disaster that could happen. Make sure it's off in a secure place. And this is, I think, I think it's the last question, and I'll treat it as it is the question really comes down to how fast do you need to be up and running. In an example that we had in my previous company, we had a company that was distributing milk as a dairy, and they got hit by ransomware, and they were lucky that part of their solution was in an application that ran untethered, so they could still deliver milk and create invoices and do what they needed to do operationally, even though their server was completely down. And it certainly caused a tremendous amount of disruption. It caused a $20,000 ransomware bill. It cost another probably $15,000 in IT support, and that was fairly light. I think the original ransomware request came in for $250,000, and by waiting them out a little bit and not feeling overly urgent, they were able to kind of back that down. But it took a lot of conversation and a lot of question of whether we could bring it back up without paying that ransom. And so depending on how critical the business application is, how fast do you need to get it up and running? If you've got a good continuity plan, probably the best plan is if you're in a hosted environment like a Google or an Amazon or Azure, they've got that redundancy in place. You are typically almost instantly up. I mean, instant meaning, maybe a couple hours you'd be up and running and in place, or shorter. If you're working on hardware that's in your building, you might be waiting for a server to come in. You might be looking for a part. You might be searching for that backup, and those things cost time and energy. So depending on how fast you need to be up is definitely critical to your plan to discuss, how we make sure that happens and the cost that goes along with that assurance and insurance that we can be up and running as fast as we desire. So with that being said, again, I'm going to open up the mics for questions, but certainly if you have questions, call us at 330-777-0650. You can email me, Jeremy Russell, at jeremy.russell@matrixintegrated.com. Certainly any one of us at Matrix would be able to help you kind of put some thoughts together and get you to the right resource. Again, we're not the expert in this arena. We thought we'd share some of our stories and real life examples and some high level points to get the juices flowing and really understand maybe that reflection on yourself of whether you have a plan in place and really answer those questions